Greetings and salutations, old friends, and hopefully some new friends. Since the year 2017, I have been covering some of the stories involving Lue Elizondo, To the Stars Academy, Tom DeLonge, and more, and have done so quite critically. And it appears that the longer time goes on, the more it appears that I may have been correct in my original criticism of the what I believe was a false narrative that started in 2017. Since then, I have continued to investigate and follow these stories very closely. Tonight on Truth Seekers, we're bringing you a Truth Seekers exclusive story, which involves a man named Rocky Swanson, a former Canadian military member who has had some interesting interactions with people that I would describe in the past as, quote, UFO celebrities, unquote. Also joining us tonight is Jeremy McGowan, who it appears has had some similar experiences with many of the same people as tonight's guest. So we will get right into it. We're going to get right into it tonight, friends. So welcome one and all. We welcome all members of the live chat. Got great attendance here already tonight. We welcome all of the live chat, but just a quick note, for whatever reason, the Instagram live feed was not working, so we're just going to continue. All of our other usual feeds, the Facebook live feed, the Twitter live feed, and the Rumble feed, the Pill feed, everything else appears to be working, so we're just going to roll with the punches tonight and bring in our guests. We have Jeremy McGowan joining us. Welcome. And we have Rocky joining us. Welcome, Rocky.
Howdy.
Yeah, so Rocky, I thought where we would begin was with how exactly did you come to become involved in the UFO subject? But first, can you tell us a little bit about your background in the military, and maybe Jeremy can help us sort of navigate what your responsibilities were and things like that, just so people get a sense of, your military service and credentials?
Sure. Well, when I was a young guy, I joined the Canadian Army right out of high school. I joined the Armored Corps, so I was a tank driver, and I was in the Lord Strathcona's regiment. And after a couple, half a decade or so, and toured to Bosnia in a reconnaissance squadron, I did something called a Land Occupational Transfer Re-Engagement Program. That's a long acronym that basically means I changed trades. I went from the Army into the Air Force, and I went into the airfield engineering branch. Airfield engineers there's a whole multitude of trades in there, including emergency services and all kinds of technicians and stuff. And I went into the emergency services area of that field.
And Rocky, were you enlisted? Were you an officer? What was your rank structure?
Right. So I retired as a warrant officer. So I was enlisted, and I looked after troops, but I was not a commissioned officer. No.
Copy that. And is the warrant officer program in the Canadian Armed Forces pretty much the same as it is with the U.S. Warrant officer program?
So that's a good question. I think that I've looked into that myself, and I think that it depends on the trade. I mean, a warrant officer is supposed to be a subject matter expert in their field. I think that's fair to say for all warrant officers. But I believe in the United States Armed Forces, and correct me if I'm wrong, that warrant officers are pilots in some cases in the U.S. Army, and that is not the case in Canada.
Oh, copy that. Okay. Yeah, I was just checking because in the United States, we only have warrant officers in the Army, and they can be helicopter pilots. They may have some fixed wing aircraft certs, but by and large, for the most part, they're helicopter pilots. It's one of the only programs I don't believe you need a full 4-year degree to get the warrant officer commissioning.
Right. It's kind of it's an interesting history to that rank, warrant officer. What does it mean? It's back in the old days in the British Navy. Actually, the king had served in the Navy, and had decided that he was getting some bad info from some of his officers, because back in those days, the commissioned officers, could simply purchase their rank. And so he wasn't getting the straight goods that he wanted, and he knew that some of his most senior NCOs would feed him a no bullshit assessment of any given situation. So he gave a warrant, a special warrant to the most senior NCOs on each ship, and they were called warrant officers. And the idea being that they could express their opinion without reprisal from the chain of command. So even to this day, it's fairly difficult to charge a warrant officer with a service offense unless it's something extraordinarily serious.
So how long did you stay in the military service total time in uniform?
About 25 years.
25 years. So you retired from the military, career military.
Yeah, I could have gone longer, but I figured life's short, so I might as well get out and do other things. So.
Gotcha. And when you were in uniform, and especially with your overseas tours, you said you'd done Bosnia and things like that. Were you wrapped up in the whole UFO topic at that time?
Not at that time, no. I mean, like anybody, I watched the X-Files,
Sure.
I like Star Wars, but no, I didn't think there was any reality to it, so I didn't really pay much attention to it. But it was, I wasn't closed off to the concept. But no, at that point, in most of my career, I wasn't. But at the end of my career, I started reading some books and had experienced a hoax that I kind of fell for, and that, but
really?
oddly, yeah, that I was up in the Arctic, and some guys knew that I was reading some books on the topic, and so were some other members, and so some members decided to sort of play a hoax, and I basically fell for it, but because of that, wow. I started looking into the topic more seriously, and that got me interested.
Gotcha. And just to confirm, there was a question in the chat. Your military status, was this considered active duty? Was it reserves, National Guard, in American term equivalent, or were you full-time, day in, day out?
Full-time, day in, day out, active service. I did do a couple of years in the reserves, way back, but no, I was full-time.
Copy that. Okay, fair enough. And did you ever have a personal UFO experience that was not a hoax?
Well, I mean, I certainly, when I was a kid, I saw something in the sky that perplexed me. I didn't know about UFOs at that time as a child. I was 9 or 10 years old. And so I saw something that I could not identify. And, but, not knowing about the topic at all, living out in the country, pre-internet, there was no reference. There was nothing to look at. So I saw something, wondered what it was, and left it at that for many, many years. Yeah, that would be about it.
Gotcha. Fair enough. So when do you think was the pivotal moment for you that really brought you into this topic?
Well, I mean, other than the incident up in the Arctic, it was really, there was an interest there because of that, and I'd started reading some books, and had reached out to different UFO researchers, authors, that kind of thing, and so that was probably the start of it. After some years of that, I dropped it because just before 2017, I'd completely stopped. My interest was over. I didn't think there was anything to it. But when the New York Times story came out, I think in, what was it, late 2017?
2017, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My sister sent me a text message late one evening when it hit the news, and she said, "What's all this UFO stuff?" And I didn't even look. I said, "Don't worry, it's bullshit," And
turns out your first impression was probably correct on that article.
Maybe. Yeah. So I did look and sent it to my brother, and we immediately got interested. He's military as well, and so we both looked at that, and we started digging into the characters behind the story. I had actually read Leslie Kean's book, UFOs and Pilots, or something like that. And so I thought she was a trusted journalist. I looked at Mr. Elizondo's credentials or what were available. And I thought, well, hey, if somebody from the Pentagon is coming out, and it seemed to be more than one, like that was the appearance it had. I thought that there must be something worth looking at.
Sure,
So,
sure. And I think that's probably a starting point for a lot of folks. Is there's a personal experience connected with a ton of information out there, and you just kind of gravitate towards that and try to check out the things that you have access to, and until you start developing access towards people. And that brings me to my next very pointed question. And Rocky, I would like you to explain this so the viewers don't hear it from me. But you had said that you had read the New York Times article, you had read Leslie Kean's book, and you mentioned Lue Elizondo, but you also have a history with Lue, and you and I have had some very old, years old conversations regarding that. Would you like to take us through the how you came to know Lue and how you came to know me?
yeah, okay. Where do I start? So I think it was May of 2021. A very dear friend of mine named Byron Delir and I did a podcast on Byron's show. I'm sorry, Byron, I don't remember the name of it. And where we interviewed Mr. Elizondo. And so I was able to ask him a few questions on that show. And being that we were both former military guys, I think we retired very close to the same time. We started messaging one another just via text or Twitter or Signal or whatever. Shortly after that interview, and it was we were both Jeep guys. You know, we both like to build Jeeps, and that's really what we talked about. Was
what was the time frame in this? Was this when I was still with Lue? Was this after I had pulled out? Was I even in the picture at this point in time?
Well, I hadn't heard of you.
Okay.
Sorry. It's just
No, it's fine.
This would be between May and August, let's say, of 2021.
Okay, fair enough. So, had you ever met Lue in person?
No.
Gotcha. And then fast forwarding a little bit, and then we can come back. But fast forwarding a little bit, you became a little suspicious of some of the things that Lue was texting you or telling you.
Yeah, we had conversations by phone about well,
this is my secret apple juice, and it's sealed. I'm opening it up right now.
What happened was Lou and I hadn't talked about the topic of UFOs really at all at that point, outside of that interview. And I was working with a friend of mine on some access to information requests having to do with the topic.
This is the Canadian version of FOIA?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this friend of mine is one of the most diligent researchers in the country. And so the reason I was involved with him was that being ex-military, I was able to sort of translate military lingo.
Sure.
To help him understand what things were about, maybe give him context to some things and contacts within the military.
Sure.
And at one point, he sent me a part of a access to information request that he had received, and it was fairly intriguing. It was basically there were some, I think, emails in there between two Canadian Forces officers about some UFO sightings. And one officer said to the other officer, "Have you accessed CL-213?" And the officer replied back, "I've accessed it, opened, and closed it." And I thought, well, that sounds intriguing. What the hell is that?
What is CL-213?
We didn't know at that time. I'll get into it. But so what I said to him was, "Hey, I've got a contact with Mr. Elizondo. I could send him this and ask him if he knows what it means." And so he gave me permission, and I shared that document with Mr. Elizondo. And
So this was a document that had been officially released
correct.
through an access to information request by the Canadian government. So it's not a
Yes.
classified document. It's not sharing state secrets. It was
Right.
It was an official release that you had the ability to
In
share.
other words, like a United States version of FOIA, but the
Yeah.
Canadian version.
That
Freedom. Okay.
So, and to be totally clear, that particular version of that document had originally been classified, and obviously declassified through my friend's access to information request. Now, I don't actually know, to be clear, if that's why it was declassified. I don't think so. I think that it just wasn't anything all that substantial. But anyway, he got it. I sent it to Lue Elizondo, and sort of waited for a reply on that. Meanwhile, we found out what CL213 was, and CL213 just stands for Checklist 213. It's a series of contacts, emails, phone numbers, addresses of military offices that should be contacted when a UFO report meets a certain criteria, right? And that can be very basic.
So let me pause you right here for a second. We don't have this in the United States. Until Arrow was spun up, there was absolutely no way for a standardized data collection of pilot reports or military witness reports. And you're saying that the Canadian government had this in place years before we stood up Arrow?
Well, I don't know what I think is that this had to do with NORAD. And so I think you guys definitely had this.
Because NORAD's joint Canadian and US.
Yeah. And so the number 213 may have been a Canadian version of the same document in the American side of NORAD. The ISRD, Intelligence Surveillance Reconnaissance Division of NORAD, has ISRD North up in Winnipeg near One Canadian Air Division, and then ISRD down at Peterson Air Force Base. And they all share those same documents, of course. And so I'm not an expert on that. I don't know exactly, what the American side called it, but there's no doubt they had the same document.
And you said you shared this with Lou. What was his take on when you shared the document with him?
Initially, he said he did not know what it was, but it seemed, and this is from memory what he said, but that he would look into it and get back to me.
Anything ever come out of that?
Not exactly out of that memo. I found it strange that he didn't know what it was, in a sense, because it turned out it was so basic that it was odd, because if you had run a top secret UFO program, the most basic reporting document should have been known to them.
He should have been familiar with that if he actually ran the Pentagon program.
I mean, right? If any,
so did that jump out at you as like a red flag then?
Well, it just hit me kind of odd. It just, any fat slob like me can get it. Then it would seem that someone running a top secret Pentagon UFO program would likely have access to the most basic documents, and many of these CL213 documents are not classified. It's just a basic reporting procedure. That's all it is. So it was just a weird thing that he didn't know what it was.
So was this like one of your first interactions with Lou after you had done the podcast? You said, "Hey, I know," and I'm speaking for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically said, "Hey, we had this podcast, we've been texting for a while. I've got this document I'd like to share with you." And was this kind of like the genesis of a longer, more involved conversation that you started to get into with Lou?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
So where did it go from there? After Lou said he was going to check in on this document, what happened next?
Well, there was lots of messages and stuff back and forth via text or whatever. Some had to do with research, some did not. But eventually I got a phone call or a text. I think it was a text message from Lou asking if I could take a phone call. And so, of course, I said yes. And then and this was July, I think, of 2021.
Okay.
So he called me up, and somewhere in that conversation, and I don't want to give an exact quote because I can't remember exactly what was said, but something in that conversation led me to believe that I was going to, okay, he inferred that he needed to update my security clearances to bring me in on some program, right?
Wait,
Yeah, this is very important. So let's
Yeah,
make sure that we have to, unpack this.
so
Yeah, go
you're
ahead, Jeremy.
you're having a conversation with Lou via text message. We'll call it Signal for lack of
Sure.
better
Yeah.
terminology. You're having a conversation via Signal with Lue Elizondo. You've never met him.
Right.
You've only done one interview with him, had a series of phone calls with
Sure.
him, gave him a declassified document that he didn't know about, and now Lou is asking you for personal information by saying the reason he's asking for the personal information is because he wants to upgrade your security clearance to be read in on a program.
That's the way I understood it. Yep.
Did he say what this
Yeah.
program was?
Wow.
No, I never got a program name or anything like that, but I understood it to be one or two programs with NORAD.
With
And
NORAD.
with NORAD, something to do with NORAD, something to do with Peterson Air Force Base, something in that area, one on the base, one off the base, or something.
So the guy that didn't know what a CL-213 was is going to read you into a program with NORAD, who is the originator of the CL-213.
Whether he was going to read me in or needed my clearances upgraded, I'm not for what purpose, I can only surmise. But when I finished that phone call, I was of the impression that I was basically applying for a job. It was more like a job interview, right?
What did he tell you were going to be doing, or did he tell you what you were going to be doing?
Not really. It was fairly vague. There was some program he was working with. Like I say, it was something to do with NORAD and very vague.
And were you still active duty at this time, or you?
No. I retired in 2016, late 2016.
Okay, so you retired in 2016. This is occurring in July-ish of 2021. And Lou is saying that he's going to read you into a NORAD program, never having met you, and you being a Canadian civilian.
Well, okay, so let's be clear. I don't want to put words into Lou's mouth either. Like,
okay,
he never said, Rocky, I'm going to read you in. That's not what he said.
Okay,
but it was that I needed my security clearances upgraded so that I could be brought in to some program or programs. Is what I took from that conversation. So
what was he asking for on a personal level to upgrade, quote unquote, your security clearance?
He didn't actually ask me for anything really. To upgrade it, he just took personal information down. I sent him copies of ID cards, etc. Maybe I even sent him a personal record resume, my military record. I don't remember exactly, but I might have sent him something called an MPRR, military personal record resume, just to back up my service. So that I think I sent that to him, but I'm not 100%.
Gotcha. So I'm assuming that was kind of a long process. And did your security clearance ever get upgraded?
No, we never discussed that again, oddly enough. But in the meantime, I found it very odd because, I'm likely the last guy on earth that any intelligence agency would read into a program like that because, hey, I was into UFOs. Look, if you want to get into intelligence and you dreamt of becoming James Bond, they don't want to take you, right? And so a guy who's really into UFOs is not likely to be read into some, top secret UFO program. But what I did was, having friends all over the place, I phoned some people at NORAD that worked in the correction departments within NORAD, and I just dropped some names and said, look, and these are people that I've known for 30 years. that happened to be at NORAD at that point, working in intelligence. And I said, hey, look, this is what I think is happening, that I may be brought down there. I may be read into a program. Do you know these people? Do you know this man? And my good friend there said he didn't know the name, but he would definitely look into this for me. He got back to me quickly, within a day or two, and said that no, they had never heard of this guy or anybody.
This guy being Lue.
Right.
Okay.
And that, it was just basically told me, hey, whatever you're getting mixed up with here, it has nothing to do with us. There's no programs like this. And that they'd never heard of him. And
so let me backtrack just a minute. You reached out directly to people that you knew based on your military service for 25 years in the Canadian military. You reached out to folks that you knew at NORAD and asked them if they knew Lue Elizondo, who was saying that he was going to bring you in to a program. And the guys that you talked to at NORAD had no idea who Lue was?
Right. And like 100%.
Yeah, that's probably another red flag that he's not being honest with. This. Well, I don't want to comment too much tonight because I really want to hear Rocky's story. But this appears to an outsider here hearing this to be very manipulative and deceitful.
So, like I say, I mean, I don't want to put words into his mouth. I don't want to misquote him, but that's what I took from the conversation with Lue. And of course, I did my due diligence and I called the right people at NORAD, and that's the answer I got.
So now that you're sitting on this and you've heard from Lue and he's requested information to beef up your security clearances and made allusions that you may be brought into a program of sorts, you had him checked and folks at NORAD have no idea who he is. What do you do now? What are you thinking now?
Well, what I'm thinking is either I misunderstood him or I need to do some more checking. So I was pretty sure of what I was told. So I phoned a friend of mine at the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. That's sort of our CIA.
Okay.
I don't want to exaggerate that, but that's their Canada's senior intelligence service. And the reason I did that was twofold. One, as at that time, I still held a security clearance. So probably didn't need upgrading in the first place. However, I got a hold of CSIS because there is a defense administrative order and a defense security order that states that if you held a security clearance, if you hold a security clearance, if you're a serving member of the Canadian Armed Forces, retired or whatever, and you are approached by a foreign intelligence service, you must report. And so I made a report that I had been.
Why did you make the report? Because you were approached by a foreign intelligence service. What did Lue say, that he was with the U.S. government, or did he claim that he was with an intelligence agency?
No. To be fair to Lue, I did that because, frankly, I wasn't totally sure he was retired, and I knew that he had been in the Defense Intelligence Agency. So it just seemed like a good, safe thing to do. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing something wrong, and that
and it's a requirement for you to do that.
It's the law. I had to, as far as I understood it. And again, I don't want to exaggerate any of that. I felt I had a legal obligation to make that call. So I sent CSIS everything. I sent them every message, everything that I had ever received, everything.
Can I just stop you for a minute? Does that, would that be something that would be FOIA-able via the Canadian equivalent to FOIA then? I
have no idea.
Okay.
Honestly,
I just wanted to make a note of that, and I will check into that situation, because if we can get those correspondences that that may shed some additional light.
Not only the
Yeah.
correspondences, but any internal memos or reports that were generated because of those correspondences. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's a paper trail here that we can follow, and I'll do my very best. If not, I'll try to call in John from the Black Vault for some help. He may be much better suited to try to pursue those than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you made the phone call,
Right.
and you said that you were approached by potentially a foreign intelligence officer.
Right.
What was that conversation like?
Well, I just told them what I believed I was told. I told them what the topic was. And now, keep in mind, I'm speaking to someone at CSIS that I know personally, right? Somebody who I'd served with, when he left the armed forces, he went into CSIS. So he wasn't the guy that was actually going to necessarily generate the paperwork, but he was taking my information. And I did it that way because I knew he would take me seriously, right? That this would go somewhere. He's a very senior member of that organization. So he got back to me fast, within a day or so. And the first thing he said was, take those damn things off your phone. Because I had these documents on my phone that I had sent, and I had accidentally cropped out the declassification numbers, and so he thought they might still be classified, but no, they weren't. But what he said to me was that they had looked into this matter because of my report, and that they were convinced that Mr. Elizondo and these people I mentioned were not in any way working with any official government program.
So it wasn't we can neither confirm nor deny. It was a straight out, no, he's not working with any official interagency intelligence organization.
Right. And again, it's not necessarily that Lue said that. It's that's what I took to believe from our conversations, right? That was the inference. So that's why I did the checking. And I got to mention this too. CSIS is responsible for our security clearances. So if my security clearance is being enhanced, upgraded, or reactivated, they're going to know. They're the ones that do it. So yeah. Nothing like that had happened. There was no paperwork generated.
Now, are you going back to Lue and telling Lue, hey, I'm finding some inconsistencies in the things that you're telling me?
No, I believe I did tell him that I had to report any contact with foreign intelligence services, but I can't remember for sure if I said that or not. Because at this point, I was starting to not want to really be part of this. I just felt that something was off. So I called a friend. Well, 2 more phone calls were made. I phoned National Defense Headquarters. Okay. And I spoke to another friend there, a very senior officer, and just got that officer's opinion of this whole situation. And their reply to me was, it sounds like you're being led down a garden path. Be careful, And so, yeah, I mean, wow. Was I don't know. But that was I started feeling nervous.
But even though you were feeling nervous, you hung out and maintain contact with Lue, correct?
Yeah, right. Because, like I say, maybe I was wrong, and I didn't want to just throw out this opportunity if it was real.
Sure.
I was simply trying. I wasn't trying to smear Mr. Elizondo or anyone. I was trying to approach this like a real possible job offer or a real thing. Like I would, like if I was applying to any other position out there that had to do with classification of any kind, I would have done the same thing, right? This is not special, right?
Right.
So I was just trying to be professional and do the right thing, and that's it. This wasn't really.
And you're doing your due diligence. You need to know the people that you're crawling into bed with.
Yeah. So I started feeling very nervous about this, and I contacted a friend of mine and a friend of yours, and it's that individual said to me something to the effect of, hey, this kind of sounds familiar. Do you know Jeremy McGowan? And I said no, I think. And he said, well, maybe you guys should talk. And so he gave you my number. I believe that's shortly after when you and I first spoke.
Yeah. And I will corroborate this. I'm not going to name the person that Rocky's talking about, but Rocky and I do have a mutual friend that he and I were both talking to without knowing the other person. I didn't know Rocky. Rocky didn't know me, but we had a mutual friend, still have a mutual friend that put us in contact with each other.
Right.
So the people hear it from you instead of me. After our friend gave you my contact information, what happened?
Well, I guess there was two, I don't know if I've got this in the right order or not, but there's sort of two things that happened. One was that Lou called me back, and there was no more conversation about any programs, but he really started buttering me up to go on some documentary and to hold up these documents that I had provided him, and to show the validity of whatever this was supposed to be.
What were these documents? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's the CL213 document. I'll have to get Stephen a copy of that.
So Lou, just for my edification, and so I fully understand this, Lou no longer was talking about this program that you may be brought into, but now he's talking to you about a television show, documentary, and he wants you to make an appearance on this show by holding up the list that was declassified that anybody could get, that he didn't even know what it was to begin with, and he wanted you to do that to give validity to the list. What was the point of that?
Yeah, that's the way I took it. 100%. Yep.
So he was using you and your military credentials to prop up this document that was literally nothing more than a phone tree.
That's the way I took it. Yeah. It was. I was told that. I mean, this is almost a verbatim quote, that I would be known as a one of the greatest researchers, that I'd be a hero to the cause. Quote unquote, quote unquote. You could be known as a ha 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 big hero in this. That's almost an exact quote. I'd be willing to take a
And by the way, Rocky, just to be clear, because a lot of people are asking, and I just want to put this on the record. There was some recorded messages or whatever, and I've heard some of them, in which Mr. Elizondo was telling you that this new documentary, which he wanted you to be involved in and bolster the credibility of these Nothing Burger documents, was going to be a worldwide phenomenon and would make you an instant big deal in the world of UFOs and sort of a hero to disclosure. I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
Sure.
Just want to put that on the record, that he was leaving you these type of messages. And second, that I have heard some of these messages, and it's not really my place to ask if you're going to release all these messages. I just want to put on the record that I didn't just take Rocky's word for it. I verified his military credentials and background claims to be accurate. Then I've heard some of the, I've seen he's got receipts for everything that he's saying, but it's really Rocky's choice whether he chooses to make those public. I'm sure there's legal things that you might want to look into before doing so.
Yeah. Well, I'm not here to slander or to badmouth or make anyone look bad.
Yeah, just to be clear, Rocky has been incredibly fair this entire time I've interacted with him. He's not here with any malicious intent. He's just got an incredible part of what I think is the inside baseball to how this stuff all works. And I think it's incredibly interesting that you basically give him these documents, Mr. Elizondo I'm referring to, and a disclosure and transparency advocate. Instead of just releasing the documents, he's waiting for a documentary deal so that he can maximize sort of the monetization of these Nothing Burger documents, and also use you to sort of bolster their importance. Am I getting this right?
Well, I mean, that's my take on it. That he certainly, he said that he wanted to release those in that documentary. He wanted me to appear on camera, to show the validity of those documents. And so what were his motives or intentions? Was it about money? I have no idea. But
what was he telling you personally? Like, what was your level of involvement going to be? Was it just about the documentary? Was there any other things that he wanted to use you for or have you involved with? What was his trajectory for you?
No, it seemed to be that. It seemed to be having guys like myself, veterans, go on camera to bolster the credibility of him and Chris Mellon, Hal Puthoff. Those are the names that he mentioned. To bolster the cause, to be a hero for the cause. And I was very concerned about releasing sources and having anybody's names leak out, that kind of thing, because there were members of the armed forces that were helping me, sort of behind the scenes get stuff. They didn't break any laws, but they didn't want their names out there. And I just remember, there was sort of I don't know what the exact quote was, but it was something about, we all have to take a hit for the team kind of thing. And sacrifices have to be made, et cetera. Right. Something to that effect. Again, not an exact quote, but I felt, and this is just my feelings on this. This is what it all is, right? But I just felt that I was about, if I said yes, I was about to be used as some sort of a David Grushian type character, some sort of pawn to further some cause that had nothing to do with UFOs. There was something else going on there, and I don't know what, but it didn't. None of this felt genuine, right? I mean, certainly he wanted me on camera, absolutely. But that whole bit about programs and NORAD and secrecy and all, these things didn't match up. And so, again, maybe I'm wrong about everything here, and he was totally legit. Okay, fine. But I didn't find that to be the case.
That wasn't your experience, sure.
Right.
So once you had my contact information, walk us through the initial conversations that you and I had, things that I told you and then told you to watch out for, and then things that you heard after that.
All right. So, sorry, I got distracted by a comment on the screen there, but, all right. So you and I talked, you told me your story. You kind of told me some things to watch out for. And I would say that your experience of being manipulated was the feelings that I was getting. And I'm sorry if I'm a little off topic. This is
no, you're
stressful
good. You're good.
No, your interpretation of events, is important. That's how you felt. That's how you felt.
Nothing felt genuine. Like, look, I want to be really clear that Lue Elizondo was nothing but polite, generous with his time, and courteous. Okay.
I'll agree. The same conversations that I had with him right up until the very end, he was nothing but amenable.
I felt that, well, I got angry. I got angry. I just felt that this was all horse shit. And I just stopped. I just stopped contact really at that point. But,
well, sorry, Rocky, let's go back in time just a little bit. You haven't mentioned this,
okay?
But and I'm trying to see if you can fill me in on some of the details here. There was a point, and you do not need to name names if you're not comfortable in doing so. I'm not asking for that. There was a point where Sean Cahill and Lue was involved in some dust up with the Canadian government. They had gone up and they were trying to talk to Canadian Parliament, and things went sideways. Were you involved in any of that? Do you have any insight on that, or understand better what happened?
Um, so there was federal government officials that had been in contact with Mr. Elizondo. He had allegedly, and he told me this himself, that he had either come to Canada and given a briefing, or maybe it was over the phone or something. I'm pretty sure it was that he said he came to Canada and gave a briefing. And so at this point, we weren't, I don't think we were, I can't remember if we were still talking at that point or not, but he had come to Canada and given some briefing to our version of what would eventually become our UAPTF. It's actually called Sky Canada.
Okay.
And so there were some officials that were given a briefing. I don't really know about a dust up, but there was, I was brought in to that, not into the organization, but into the conversation, put it that way, where officials at the very head of this were talking to me. And again, they were asking me for some perspective on the topic, perspective on military things, because they were getting pushback from the Canadian military, from NORAD and whoever. And so they were looking at me trying to be some sort of a link between that organization and the military. And I told them that I knew Mr. Elizondo to a degree, and that they should be cautious because he was a foreign intelligence officer, and that perhaps his motives were not actually in line with theirs, that they should just be cautious of that. Yeah.
And the dust up I refer to, and I don't know where this information came from, but I remember being told that when Lue met with the members of Parliament, he actually screwed up and talked to the opposition party, not the party that was in power. And he did so as an intelligence agent of the United States, or something like that.
Okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's a little bizarre for an intelligence officer to talk to the wrong guys on purpose.
Let me clear that up as best I can. Is that he was speaking, I believe, to a Conservative Party member of Parliament and his aides. The Conservative member of Parliament has come out in public. His name is Larry Maguire.
He's a big UFO believer, so that's why Lue was speaking to him.
Right. And it is odd that if you're going to come to Canada and give a briefing to the government on something so sensitive, that you speak to the official opposition rather than the sitting government. That's just not how it's done, right? It's subversive in a sense.
And was in a sense, to your knowledge, was this Lue Elizondo talking to the Canadian opposition party as Lue Elizondo, or do you think that he was talking to the Canadian opposition party as a member of the Defense Intelligence Agency, or as an employee of the U.S. federal government?
Oh, I believe he was straight up. I think he talked to them as Lue Elizondo. I think, as far as I know, he was straight up about the fact that he was retired, etc. As far as I know.
Copy that. Okay. So
just one thing I wanted to bring up is that, sometimes people make big deals about things like, oh, Lue Elizondo's meeting with Canadian members of Parliament, but they do the lie by omission, and they forget to tell you that those guys are like, he talked to Larry Maguire, who is a huge UFO believer. It's not like he went and addressed the entire, assembly of members of Parliament. This is a nothing burger. He went up to Canada and he hung out with one of his UFO buddies, who also happens to be an opposition member of parliament and a huge UFO believer. And he has used that guy before to push this narrative that Lue has some sort of importance, and he's talking to Canadian government members. It's kind of like it's a nothing burger to me.
To be fair, I don't know if I would categorize it exactly like that. I think that because there was a serious push from that member of parliament and others, the way I understand it, to get something going. I would say that there was some validity to this program, because it did stand up. They did stand up, the UAPTF, and you know, they thought very highly of Lue, actually. So you know, whatever was said, whoever was all in the room, etc., I do not know. I know there was a number of meetings with various people, not just Lue. So it is not all bullshit. There is some truth there.
And that's what makes this topic really difficult to dissect, because when there is some truth to it, you have a really hard time isolating what is not true.
Yeah. Hi, Steve Long. Never met you, but admire your conversations. I always, sorry to get distracted, but Steve Long, I just noticed him there, and he's a character that I've been a gentleman that I've been paying attention to, because he seems to have a pretty
he's pretty dialed in.
Yeah, he's switched on. Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted.
No, you're good, Rocky. Talk to me a little bit, if you can, about the tone, the inflection, the things that Lue told you, promises that may have been made, how he made you feel, and you know, and I'm asking questions. I'm trying not to be pointed with them, but it's kind of difficult not to, because my experience with Lue was very documented, and I'm just trying to find out what the similarities are between the stuff he told me and the stuff he told you.
Well, first of all, I found him to be very friendly guy. Very, I don't know if gregarious is the right word, but, you know, a big personality. I think everybody can see that. He gives, and none of this is going to be surprising to people. There's a lot of compliments thrown your way, right? And it's too much in a sense, right? Like, it's just too much.
It's like love bombing in a cult, you know?
Yeah, it just felt over the top. But again, how do you disparage someone for being nice, right? So I'm not.
It's a powerful drug. When somebody tells you you're doing a great job, you're going to go far, you're going to be a hero in all this, that's a powerful drug, because everybody looks for a little bit of self-validation.
Right. I mean, look, there's a good chance Lue does not know how I feel about this stuff, right? So it's like, this is my take on all of this was that it was just too much, that I was being sold something, and it just felt off, you know, and so maybe he just tried too hard. I don't know, but here's the thing. Why me? Right? I am nothing. I am a nobody, average slob. And so it's odd that if you're going to either bring somebody into some program, if that was the case, or even get somebody to go on documentaries, I'm not your guy. You know, there are people that you should be going after, and I'm not it.
Well, let me ask you this, and my apologies in advance if this gets really personal, and please tell me to screw off if it does. You are under no obligation to answer this, but I'll start by saying that Lue was very aware with me that I had a very fractured relationship with both my mother and my father. He also knew that I had PTSD from my time in the military, 2.5 years in the Middle East, about a year down in South America with the DEA. Saw a lot of things that I still see. Was that a factor with you?
What, that I'm a case of broken goods or something?
Basically, yeah. Are you as damaged as I am?
Well, I don't know if I am, but I would say that any veteran who's gone on tours of duty overseas in active combat zones has that level of stress and wear and tear, let's say. And I did get the sense that there was this sort of big brother savior type mentality. Now, is that legitimate, sincere? I want to help my fellow veterans. Um, Kind of thing, or is it something else? And it's hard to say.
Fair enough.
One of the things that Lou did to me was when he was really trying to bolster his self credentials in the way that I looked at Lou was an incident that I've talked about quite a bit. Is he reaches into his back pocket, he pulls out his cell phone, and he shows me a video of what he described as a Russian, or I mean, yeah, I think it was the Russian Phobos moon mission.
Yeah, it was a blob that came flying into the camera
Yeah.
and gobbled up the. Right.
Did he attempt to make you feel like you had access to things that you had no business having access to?
I see. Okay. Did he attempt to do that? I don't know. But the feeling I had was that yes, if I continued down this path, I would have access, I would be read in, something, you know. That was the inference. That's the way I took it. Um, what was he thinking? Who knows? But that was,
Sure.
yeah, that is the way I took it. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, you feel like you're about to be part of a club, that you're about to be part of the big game, that you're being brought in, right?
And we've seen other people, just to be clear, we've seen many other people talk about Lue Elizondo. I'm going to try to be fair with my comments, sort of giving people the impression that they were going to be led into this inner circle, and that's where you're going to get to see the real goodies that he has. Did you get that kind of impression that other people have reported on?
That was the impression, yeah. Yeah, I did have that impression, and is it accurate? I don't know, but Stephen Greenstreet and John Greenwald, two people that I actually deeply respect, did a little conversation online where Mr. Greenstreet was saying that he felt that he was a message boy or something, that he was being used to put out disingenuous messages. And that is the same feeling I had. And I mean, it felt overwhelming. And I at that point, I didn't know anybody. This is going way back, but
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody else that was feeling this way. I have a little chat group that we were, we've spent 7 years now sort of investigating this stuff together. Just a small little group of 6 of us, I think 6 or 7 of us. And I went onto our private chat group and exploded. I mean, because we were the fanboys and girls of ATIP, of Mr. Elizondo, etc. And I went on there and I just exploded because I felt that this was all bullshit.
Did you ever hear Lou say anything that you confirmed to be false? I'm not asking you if you think Lue Elizondo lied with intent. I'm asking if he ever told you something like, I don't know, I won the lottery, or I did this, or I know this, or something that you verified was absolutely not correct.
Well, I mean, outside of what I said about NORAD and that, I can't think of anything drastic off the top of my head here. Sorry, I'm having a little hard time with this.
No, you're fine. The reason I ask is because of, and again, this is well documented. He had told me that he was a 33rd degree Mason, which I have confirmed is not the case. Was there anything in a similar vein that he said to you that could have been him saying it to bolster his position or increase his perceived value?
I think if he did, I'd be speculating. And there were some things about working with the Canadian Special Forces. He said that online in the interview that I did with Mr. Delir and Mr. Elizondo, and I don't know what to think about that. But
Wait, are you saying that Lue said you worked with Lue in the Special Forces?
No. Lue said that he had worked with our Coyote trucks, doing direction finding. This might very well be true. I don't know. It just sounded odd to me. But no, I can't think of anything hard here that I just thought of was an absolute lie. No, I didn't. He didn't tell me stories about being a Mason or whatever. No, I didn't hear those stories.
Copy that. Did you have any interactions at all with Sean Cahill during this time?
No, maybe some messages or something. No, my interaction was with Lue and other people, but those other people I will not name, just because they've got no part in this story. And I think they're good people. I think there's a lot of good people out there that have, for one reason or another, gotten involved in this topic, and they don't all need to be doxed and named, and they're not relevant.
Sure. No, and I certainly respect that. I think there's I think that a lot of the listeners out there really appreciate your measured approach to this, and the fact that you have been very cautious in not disparaging, not making a definitive statement on Lue lied or Lue's a pile of crap or anything like that. You are being a consummate gentleman in this, and I think that is resonating, and people are respecting that.
Look, I sent Lue a message after some time, and I apologized for doubting him, etc., because I knew that he was going to be having some part to play with the Canadian version of the UAPTF, and I thought I was going to as well, and so I thought it'd be better to patch things up, and that my government, at the time, I thought my government had some official contact with him, and that they had sort of vouched for him. And so I did. I called him up, and Lue was very gracious in accepting that apology, etc. But I couldn't hold on to that. I just kept going back to something stinks, and I don't know what. And it just everything just feels off. It's just I realize that your viewers or whoever is out there may have been looking for some blockbuster story here, but I'm not here to deliver that. I'm just
your story is an honest accounting of your experiences from your perspective, and so far what I'm hearing is that you had made contact through a podcast, you had kept in contact, you used him to validate or research a document that you had uncovered through the Canadian version of FOIA.
Yeah.
And this is me adding things to this now from my perspective. He sees that you have access, that you are researching this. He sees your military background. He sees your access into the Canadian Special Forces, into the Canadian Armed Forces, and he starts to befriend you at that moment.
I got to correct you on something there. I had nothing to do with Canadian Special Forces.
How did that come about then? Because it seems...
okay. Let me clear that up.
Sure.
No, I'm about as far from Special Forces as you can get. No. In the podcast interview that we did with Mr. Elizondo, he mentioned that he had worked with our Coyote trucks. The Coyote trucks are not the same as the Coyote reconnaissance vehicle that I served on. These other vehicles that some call Coyotes are only used by our Special Forces. So it was obvious that was the Special Forces, right?
So he, claiming to have worked with the Special Forces, would have known the disparity in terminology between those vehicles and still got it wrong.
Can you say it again? Sorry.
he had claimed that he had worked with Canadian Special Forces, but yet he still didn't know the terminology difference in those vehicles and still got that
Oh,
confused.
I think we might be going down a weird rabbit hole here. No, I think he had that vehicle correct. I think that he knew what it was. We're not the only ones that have that vehicle, and it wouldn't have been a big secret that our guys were out there, considering who Lue worked for. I think that Lue, when he went to Afghanistan to conduct some interviews for his job, was in a location where our special forces were located and may have seen them.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. But look, our special forces don't just take people out in the field, and especially like counterintelligence people, they're not out in the front lines. They're not out dodging bullets. They're not. There's some stories out there that I've heard online, and
they're in an air-conditioned office way behind the lines, I would think.
Well, that may be. I don't want to take away from anybody's.
Sure, I agree. Yeah,
I know hard Air Force people that had spent time in the shit in Afghanistan, and nobody would believe it because they were just Air Force. It happens, right? Rarely, but it happens. But no, I just felt that maybe when Lue told that story, it was just a way to have a common ground to speak on. I didn't get. I didn't get the sense that he was lying about it. I don't think he was lying about it. I just, that was the only thing that I ever sort of questioned about.
Gotcha.
Some statement. I want to say this again. There is not one thing that Lue said to me about being a Mason or a black belt or a whatever. Nothing like that. Our conversations were never like that.
It's just an amalgamation of gut feelings that sent you to the cautious side.
Yeah, like I say, one of the reasons I feel sick to my stomach about talking about this right now is that I don't want to disparage anyone, including him, and I'm just here to express caution, saying that something's off.
Well, let me ask you this. Two questions. The first one is, after you separated from Lue and you decided that this just wasn't the path that you wanted to be on, I'm assuming that you paid attention to the things that he said, the interviews that he did, the tweets that he put out. Was there anything that Lue said after you left that you're like, this is completely wrong? This did not happen this way. This is utter crap.
Well, there were some comments about his contacts with the Canadian government and some of those briefings and the sort of high level nature of those. And I did question, and I realize I'm going back to what we were talking about earlier, just how high level that was, because as we've learned, some of these things were more or less, although there was a legitimate program that came out of that, some of these things really had nothing to do with him. Right. No, frankly, when I walked away, I didn't, actually, it made me sick to my stomach to hear about UFOs, and I just turned it off, for the most part. Yeah.
Being as considerate as you are and as careful as you are to not disparage Lue, what would Lue have to do today to be able to gain your confidence?
Explain to me why it is I thought that he was going to be needing to upgrade my security clearances. Explain to me why I thought that there was something going on with NORAD programs. I need that cleared up. That
if Lue came out to you today and he said, Rocky, what I was doing was I was recruiting you. I was trying to get you under my wing. What I was telling you was not the direction that we were going to go. We were going to go full entertainment. We were going to make millions of dollars. And this is the opportunity that you screwed up because you didn't listen to what I say. Would you accept that?
Well, I don't want anyone's money. What I would say is that it doesn't. that wouldn't make a lot of sense, because what I was told was that I asked, why me, right? Why would
Sure.
you? Why would he need someone like me? And the answer was that, and this could be very legit. Okay, he wanted to bridge the gap between the military and the civilian world to help make this topic more palatable. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a pretty damn close quote. Something to that effect. I believe that's probably been said online. I don't think I'm the only one that's heard that. So that doesn't match with what you're saying, right? About it just being about a money making scheme.
Well, it
You know what
as
I mean? Like it's
as
I'm
I
just
yeah, as I think of it, it actually does fall in line, because we had those discussions as well. We were talking. Well, I was listening. Lou was doing most of the talking, saying that for any advancement to happen, the topic has to become mainstream first, and the entertainment section is the easiest way to make things mainstream. Um, I find that a bit convenient, but that was the reasoning that he had
I
used
see.
towards me.
I see. Um yeah, he might have said something like that. I don't I am so not into this being on camera and doing media stuff that he would have known that it well, you guys know how hard it was to get me to come on here. Like I didn't know until today if I was really going to be here or not. To be fair, um, so
If you could say or ask Lou one question outside of
yeah,
why did you tell me about the clearances and things,
sure.
what would you ask Lou, assuming that he had to tell you the truth?
Why do I get the feeling I was being played? That's it, right? Is there some operation, some real mission, something that is the essence of this kind of bullshit? Is there some look? That's the last thing I ever said to him via text. I said, I hope your mission is what you say it is, and I wish you the best of luck in that, or something to that effect, if it is. Because if his mission is to uncover, disclose the truth of some alien cover-up conspiracy, then go for it, brother. Get it out, right? But something about that whole thing just is so terribly off that it's got to be something else, and I don't
Well,
know what that is.
I want to put you on the spot for a minute, and
Sure.
tell me to screw off if you
All right.
need to. Throughout this whole conversation, you have really avoided making assumptions.
Okay.
But I want to ask you what you think Lou is doing. What does your gut tell you that Lou's doing?
Um,
And if
wow.
you're not comfortable answering that, you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I had an answer to that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here, right? Um, it's easy to speculate, and it's easy to disparage. It's easy to do all these things that we all do. But here's a highly trained counterintelligence officer who goes to the New York Times. He contacts them. He tells Leslie Kean his story. The story comes out in the way that he wanted it to. He brings in people like David Fravor and these others to tell
Also,
all
veterans, by the way.
right to tell all of us a story to what to imply that there's a giant alien cover up going on. um there's no evidence that any of that stuff is actually happening. So to answer your question, I haven't got a goddamn clue what he's actually up to. And I would like to know, but I would like to know because I felt that our friendship was somewhat genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah.
It
I,
puts you in
I
a hard spot when you feel as if you have developed a friend,
yeah.
and then I'm not speaking for you, I'm speaking for me. You realize that that friend has lied, has deceived you, and has played you. Not just played you, but played you for a fool.
Well,
Uh,
I felt that way, and again, like, look, I'm. It's such a weird topic that
mm,
outside of holding up an alien head, it's going to be hard to get me to believe that aliens are here. Okay, so that's where I'm at on that. But so what are these people up to? Is it just a grift? Is it just about making money? I mean, some of these people, like like Mr. Mellon, they're billionaires. What do they need
mm.
money for? Is it about power? Is this about affecting change in government? What is this? Was Are people like me being used as pawns to, yes, get attention for a topic, but is the sense I get, to answer your question, I guess, if I was to guess, is that this topic is used as a propellant, as a carrier
Mm.
to help move government in certain directions on some other issue,
Yeah.
and it's not about it's not about aliens.
Yeah,
And
It's
just to
something
take a
else.
moment to read this comment because I think it's a very important one. Stephen Greenstreet of the New York Post is here in the live chat and chimes in. Greenstreet here. I've been speaking back and forth with Rocky for a while. I find him to be a sincere and genuine person, and he has receipts. I've seen them. So, just to be clear, Rocky has shared those receipts with both myself, Stephen Greenstreet, and maybe others. For the people that are, asking for proof or whatever,
I
and
was
we
very
appreciate that.
no, I mean, look,
But
I was very measured in what I shared. And
yeah, and to be clear,
I
you only shared a very small percentage of what the
yeah,
total. You
as
just went here. So he did that for me, and I think people like Stephen Greenstreet, just so that we would feel comfortable that he was being honest and forthright, and that he has the proof and receipts. And also, this is a very good question. We're going to read all the super chats at the end, but since this is a question for you, I'm going to read this one now from King Milk Fart Harassment Archive. We've already talked about this, but if you want to discuss this here publicly, what does Rocky think of Lue's fanboys harassing his critics, and is he concerned? You are supported, Rocky. Thank you.
well, yeah, I'm expecting some harassment. I've been harassment online. I don't expect any harassment from Lue. I don't think he does that. I think that his fanboys can all eat a big bowl of fuck. Sorry,
Yeah,
excuse
eat a
me.
bag of dicks, you bunch of
Yeah,
losers. Yeah.
I'm not concerned about that. Sorry, excuse my language. Um, but yeah, I mean, first of all, look, there's a reason I'm here today. I didn't come on here to disparage Mr. Elizondo. I came to give my perspective and my feelings on what I experienced, but mostly I wanted to express some support for Jeremy, because I felt through what I experienced that your story rang true. I felt that there's a gentleman out there who I don't know, but his name is and I'm going to butcher his name probably, but it's Lou Jimenez, I believe, from used to have a podcast. It's called um, Lou Reviews,
Mhm.
and it's actually, I get a little emotional when I think about that gentleman, because when he was going through his stuff, holy shit, I felt so such a connection there, because I felt I knew exactly what he was feeling, and there was no one to mention this to, right? Like, it was just this visceral feeling, and I actually took a video of him, slowed it down, and I put a whole bunch of battle music to it, when he was ranting about his experiences, and I sent it to him. He probably thought I was some wackadoodle and never never responded, but that's well over a year ago. So to him, and there's a young couple from Canada named Josh and Artemis that had a little show, and they received a lot of harassment, and There
We
was,
have as well here, just to put that on the record.
yeah, for sure.
People
And
have threatened my wife, my children by name.
right,
Like, congratulations, Sherlock. You looked me up on Facebook.
yeah, there was,
I've been doxxed and all this other stuff. And, you know, when they go to that length or to that extreme, to me, it means that they have no arguments against the
Yeah.
right,
information that we're
yeah,
presenting. I want to take a moment to thank King Fart Harassment Archive, and also a big thank you to Drama Alert for kind and generous $49.99. Thank you both for helping us here to continue this journey. We're a viewer-supported show. We appreciate your support. And where do you think we should cover next, Rocky? Do you have some other things that you think are important to share?
well, I mean, number one, I just wanted to throw a little, like I was just saying, throw a little support to some people, because regardless of what Lue's intentions were, this is the feeling, the effect that we all had, right? And so I get it loud and clear that people really did have these experiences, and they really did feel this way. I feel this way, and I guess if people are if veterans are being contacted by people like this, and they're being told that they're going to be heroes, and they're being promised things that seem a little bit too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. And be very weary of these kinds of things, and ask questions. Get out there and do your due diligence and check for yourself, right? Again, I'm willing to be proven wrong, and I in fact hope to be proven wrong about all of this. That would be awesome. I would love my own pet ET or something. That'd be great. But I don't think it's going to happen.
So Rocky, two questions for you. One, I want people to know who you are belief wise, because one of the things that people are going to do, and if you are, that's fine. That's who you are. But people are going to label you as a skeptic, an
Sure.
anti-Lue nut job, all sorts of things. What is your personal feelings on UFOs, UAPs, aliens, the phenomenon?
Well, I think, like a lot of people, I go back and forth. I'm open to the idea of the extraterrestrial hypothesis. They're out there somewhere. We are here. If you look at that famous photograph taken from the Voyager spacecraft, the pale blue dot, we're just another pale blue dot with all kinds of life. There's lots of pale blue dots out there. Right. So I think that it's inconceivable that there isn't more life out there. Now, is that life coming here and taking our cows and stacking rocks to make pyramids and doing crop art? Nope. Right? I don't think there's an ounce of evidence for any of that. I think that there is a religious type cult behavior behind most of the ufology world today. I think that the ufology world today needs to do a self-check and start looking at objective evidence and start embracing science a little stronger. We scare scientists away. We scare skeptics away in that field. Guys like Mr. Mick West, they come out and they give their opinion on something, and people attack them for being skeptics. Well, we should embrace skepticism, because if we're analyzing something and we want the truth, then let's be as skeptical as we possibly can be, so that we can clear the table of all the bullshit and find out what's actually there. So it's not about belief for me. It's about getting to the bottom of whatever the mystery is. And I don't care what everyone's passion is, whether it's UFOs or ghosts and goblins. I don't care.
No, I appreciate that. And I think that tells the world, that you're not here to debunk. You're not here to crash the UFO narrative. You're not paying.
Yeah, one of those common things, and it drives me nuts. I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that people go, "What are you saying, Stephen? That UFOs aren't real?" No, but we have to go through each thing individually. And of course, UFOs are real. There's always going to be things in our sky that we can't identify. I just have a problem with the jump to aliens that everybody does.
Yeah,
it's too quick,
And Rocky, one of the things that I do want to talk to you about briefly, because everybody is asking, and Steve has mentioned it, you have recordings. These are not clandestine, secret recordings. They came to you the same way that mine came to me when, like, Lue Elizondo and Sean Cahill would text me or send voice notes and things like that. Is that an accurate statement?
Sure. I mean, my friends and I do that back and forth all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
create
With-
AI version of them and
Well-
do it that way to avoid any potential problems.
I'm not going to go put things online. That's not my
Right.
goal.
What would it take? What would it take for you to, and I'm not asking you to do it, I'm just asking you what it would take for you to say, here's the message that proves everything that I've just said. Does Lue Elizondo himself have to come out and say that Rocky is a liar? Or what would it take for you to show the world that, very similar to what I did with the articles, if it was bold and in quotes, I've got the receipts, I've showed some of the receipts, so everybody knows that everything else is out there should I ever need it. But what is your Rubicon there?
I don't know the greater value of that. I mean, sure, people want to believe or not believe.
Let me ask you the question a different way.
No, I got your question, Jeremy. I get it. But I mean, if for example, if Lou said, like, I claim that he said things to me like that I would be a big hero for the cause or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can prove that.
Okay.
That there are things that I can prove and there's things that I can't prove. And
if Lue Elizondo ever filed a frivolous lawsuit against you for libel or slander,
good luck. I have no money, so no problem.
Do you have the evidence?
One of the best defenses.
Right.
Sorry.
Do you have the evidence to back up that everything that you're saying is 100% true and that case would get kicked right out of court?
I believe so. I mean, obviously, some of this stuff is speculative, right? There's things about the programs and stuff that I don't know if that's exactly right, but a lot of this is very much backed up. Yeah.
Copy that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Steve, I don't have many more questions, brother.
Well, I have one from the audience, and this will help us to also to clear up the super chats. For those unaware, we read every one, but when we're doing an important interview like this, I try to hold them to the end, but we've gotten through them. So Pinzer says, kind of generous $3. Even haters know Steven's a good researcher. Yeah, they always attack me personally. They never have attacked my research, and that'll tell you something. High Speed Chase has a great point. Thanks for being a member, and a very kind and generous $50 super chat says, I believe that grifters and debunkers share similarities with finding the truth. How do you gentlemen feel about that?
Yeah, I would agree with that in many ways. I think that, well, it's just my feeling. I think that, look, I don't think the separation between believers and skeptics, as I would call them, is actually that big. I think that we've got to get to a place in this topic where we can have some common ground and where we can have a civil discussion, like I believe we've just had, where I may disagree with some of the things that I was told, or maybe people disagree with my feelings on some of this. But the reality is, if we're looking for proof on things, then we got to work with evidence. That's it. And I think we can agree to that.
I think for me, belief that grifters and debunkers have similar goals, or whatever the question was, I think that we first have to define grifting. For me, it's the peddling and profiting of false stories.
I agree with you 100%.
If that is the case, then they do not have any equality or similarity between them. If you define grifters as just peddling unsubstantiated claims that may or may not be true, then maybe. But if they are peddling falsehoods, and they are known falsehoods, and they are perpetrating hoaxes, or they are straight up lying to people, then I do not find any similarities whatsoever.
Yeah, fair. And again, I'm actually not here calling Mr. Elizondo or anybody a liar. I'm saying that I simply don't believe certain things. Only they know. whether they're telling the truth or not. And my attempt to verify things, I wasn't able to verify certain stories or whatever, right? But so I don't need to call anyone a liar. I just try to figure out for myself what's happening.
What would you tell a prior service Canadian military person that comes to you and says, "Hey, I just got contacted by Lue Elizondo. I think he wants me to work for him." What would you tell that guy?
Wow, I would say get everything in writing, check your facts, believe nothing. Just get your facts straight, right? Like, don't work off of belief. But that said, I would say that really about working for anybody. So it's, that's what I would say. But more importantly, I would say that if you feel like you're being brought into something and you're not being given the full picture, something stinks, right? So it doesn't make any sense, right? You've got to be given the full picture. So I would just say ask as many questions as you can and get some verification for whatever that is. But I would also say that if you're being asked to do a job on UFOs, run. Just don't, right? It's whatever this is, it isn't about UFOs and it isn't about aliens. It's something else. And if they're not willing to share that with us, then it's probably not worth getting involved with.
I did have some questions that we haven't really covered, because I think a lot of this ties into a lot of this stuff that we're talking about. Lue Elizondo certainly would tie in with the Grush story, because Brian Bender has claimed that Elizondo groomed Grush for his current situation. And I want to ask Rocky, do you think that he was recruited in a likely or similar manner to this current role that we've just heard your description of, and Jeremy had a very similar experience? And we're at 245 days now, so and still no evidence that Grush has provided. So I just wanted your take on that. Do you think he was recruited in a similar way to you and Jeremy, with promises of, sort of being a hero of disclosure? And do you think he's ever going to show us any evidence, or is this just another perhaps person that was manipulated by this whole machine?
It is my honest feeling that he has been manipulated by someone, that he has been coached, that he has been used, and yet, having said that, I mean, maybe he enjoys some part of the limelight. I don't know, but I don't get the sense that whoever approached him, because Mr. Grush said he was approached, right? And that, as soon as I heard him say that, it was like every flag went up. Fuck, flares were going off, right? Like he was approached and told things, and it just felt familiar to me. So I would say that my opinion is that he's being coached, and that there's something wrong with that story. I mean, there's something very wrong with the Grush narrative of things, extraordinarily wrong. The whole thing is wrong. But how does a gentleman like that get to a position where he's telling these stories about, the giant Star Destroyers being buried in a hangar or whatever? I don't know, but something's wrong there.
Yeah,
obviously the sense of reality of the story is wrong, but I mean, there's something else wrong.
Rocky, were you ever encouraged to say things that weren't necessarily a lie, but was a little bit more of an exaggeration than the way it actually was?
No. I felt that being asked to go on camera and speak about these documents, knowing that they were so mundane, was weird, right? Mm. That's akin to that, but no. So I mean, absolutely not. I mean, nobody, not Lou, not anybody, came up to me and said, I want you to say this, and it's not true. No.
Yeah, and
Copy that.
also I wanted to ask you, Rocky, because besides Elizondo, you sort of interacted with some other people in the that I would use the term UFO celebrities in
Oh
quote.
God. Yeah.
And in one case, you were sort of a source for somebody, but then went back to
Yeah.
them and said, "No, the story's a hoax."
I
Can
tried
you
to go back.
tell
I
us a little
tried.
bit about that situation? Because I think it sheds light on this whole game a little bit. You know?
I like I said at the beginning, I'd kind of fallen for a hoax years ago. No, not kind of. I did. I believed that a UFO incident had occurred up in the high Arctic. I really was intrigued by that. I passed that on to a famous UFO researcher.
You're not going to
And
name him?
I don't know if it's fair. In fact, you know what? I don't want to.
Okay, no,
Yeah, yeah.
fair enough. Well, let's just tell the story, and we'll just say it's a prominent, well-known UFO
Yeah,
researcher.
I would say about
That's
as
fair.
big as they get. And so I passed that story on to him. I didn't know if it was true, but I felt like maybe it was. There was some kind of UFO, is what I thought. And in the end, it turned out to be BS. But I tried to get that message back to this gentleman that hey, look, I've got new information. But by
But
this
he'd
point,
already run with the story,
he did,
and
and that's unfortunate. And he was I think he felt that I was full of crap because there was some stuff happening in the Ukraine in 2014. I was sitting at home talking to him on the phone, and we're talking about the Ukraine stuff. And we get off the phone. My work phone dings, and it's another warrant officer saying, "Hey, Rocky, you're being deployed to Ukraine." And I'm like, "What are the freaking chances of that happening that fast?" So I said to this researcher, "Call me back." And I told him the story, and I don't think he believed me. And we've never talked since. And I never did end up going to Ukraine. The guy that sent me the text message, this fellow warrant officer, first name's Scott. I'll just leave it at that. He ended up going in my place because I had done enough tours of duty that I was frankly done doing tours of duty. So that's what happened with that. And I'm sorry. I feel like if I put that name out there, that I'm
no, it's fine.
Yeah.
someone into my
You're
own
good.
bullshit.
You're good.
Yeah, well, this is an excellent question from Tekken Fighter. Thanks for the $5 super chat. He's asking to the guest, did Elizondo ever mention Richard Butt, Counter Mundi, on Twitter?
Interesting. There were conversations about, and look, I can't quote this because I don't remember the exact nature.
You can paraphrase. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, there were conversations about some of these people, and he knew that they were supporters of his, etc. But there was, like, I knew, for example, that there was a Twitter handle that Lue was using that was a different name, and that's the very Twitter handle that Lou Jimenez and his team discovered. I knew about that.
Are you talking about Faceless Bureaucrat or
Yes.
Robot Mafia?
Yeah, Faceless Bureaucrat.
Faceless Bureaucrat, yeah.
Yeah, I knew about that before they did, and I knew about that.
Did you know about that from Lou?
Yes.
So Lou admitted to you that Faceless Bureaucrat was in fact his account.
I think so. I mean, look, there was two ways that I got that, and one was from a mutual friend that said, "Hey, this is his other handle," and so I contacted him that way, and so it had to be him because we were having conversations, and it was just obvious. But
well, that's interesting. So we have further confirmation of the use of sock puppet accounts by Lue Elizondo.
Whether he told me or it was someone else, I don't think it matters. But yeah, I'm 100% confident that was his. And look, I had a handle. I was the Dino Beaver on Twitter, and so I was when I backed out of this topic. Yeah, I created a handle like that, and I went online and I was having some fun. I talked to different folks on Twitter, and I did that for about 2 months a couple years ago, and I had some fun as the Dino Beaver. But so yeah, there were handles out there. There was a whole string of people that are either close to Lue or fanboys, that once they knew we were communicating, they all kind of started communicating with me, and it sort of brings you into that circle. There were Facebook pages that were well known in that circle that Lue was on under different names, that people would communicate with. Nothing nefarious, just private groups.
Well, it kind of is when he's using those accounts to harass his critics as well, and we have verification that that's actually him.
If that happened, then yeah. But I didn't personally see him. I've never in my life seen Lue Elizondo harass anybody. Right? I never.
That could be an unfair characterization, so I take it back.
No, I mean, if that's your experience, I never. Again, my whole experience speaking to Lue was that he was a gentleman to me. He was polite. He was generous with his time. All of that, there's nothing to report that way. I regret the fact that I'm here today having this conversation, in the sense that I wish that it had turned out differently.
Did you get the fact, Rocky? Sorry to interrupt, but did you get this sense that the majority of Lue's efforts was geared towards narrative and image control more than it was researching the topic? Did he come off as actually being knowledgeable about UFO, UAP histories?
Oh, that's a good question. No, I don't think he had much knowledge about ufology, about its history. I studied this stuff hard when I got into it, and I think that I wouldn't call Lue a scholar of the topic by any means, and I don't think he claimed to be.
Would you find that to be odd for somebody that claims to have run the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program that, actually, according to him, was supposed to study UFOs?
Well, actually, no, I don't find it odd. I think that ufology is so polluted with garbage that if I was to be in a program like that, I would want to focus on advanced aerospace, not ufology. So I would steer away from this. The fact that he got involved in this at all is mind-blowing to me. That's the part that I find surprising. I think that Lue actually answered that a few times quite well on different media platforms, where he said he wasn't part of this. That he had no interest in it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I think that, yeah, I would have to defend him that way and say that I too would not have gotten involved with ufologists and ufology if I was there to actually study a real event. The only way you get involved in ufology, I think, is if you have nothing.
But if you talk about remote viewing and extra humans, or
sure,
the others, sure, and extra dimensionals, you would think that somebody that has the ability to speak on those topics would also have been well versed in the ufology aspect.
Yeah, okay, I could agree with that. But I mean, I don't think that ATIP was a program in the way that a lot of the believers think it was. I think that the evidence for what it really was is crystal clear, actually, now, thanks to Mr. Greenstreet and Mr. Greenwald and a few others. I think that, and actually Mr. Elizondo, I think that Mr. Elizondo's IG report showed that the ATIP thing was a hobby, right? Now, that said, now we start getting into the rabbit hole of OSAP. Was, according to Harry Reid, ATIP was a nickname for OSAP, etc. We all know the story. And right. So I surmise that when Mr. Elizondo said somewhere, he said online that he always maintained he was not part of OSAP, but that he had done some security for OSAP. Remember that? Mm-hmm. There was something to do with that. Well, I surmise that the security was real, that he was looking at the security classification around it, the paperwork generated, what the hell was going on there, because that was a real program. And I don't think that the Defense Intelligence Agency was very happy when they found out about the Dino Beaver, ghosts and goblins. And so they didn't want that stuff out. Perhaps perhaps Mr. Elizondo's job was actually security. In other words, keep that shit closed, right? And then when they closed the program down, he had access to those files, knew that he could get away with using the word ATIP because that was not a real name. That was not a classified name. OSAP was. I don't think that perhaps he didn't expect that Mr. Lakatsky would come forward. And perhaps that derailed this, right? That when Mr. Lakatsky came out and started saying, well, wait a minute, I ran OSAP, I had the money, that kind of threw a giant wet blanket on all of this, right? So anyway, that's a big bunch of that's my hypothesis.
Based on everything that you know from personal experience from Lue, what do you think is going to be in his book?
Wow. Hopefully not me. I don't know. I look forward to it, actually. I want to read it. I hope to get an autographed copy. Maybe it'll just be a big middle finger or something. But no, I don't know. I hope that maybe his book will clear it all up, right? And
don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath, but look, I want to say something here, and that is that we don't know the structure. We don't know the org chart of everybody around Lue. We know the public organizational chart. We know about Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, all of these folks, even Kit Green and others. We know that. But is there another layer to this beyond? And I think maybe there is. And so whatever that is maybe perhaps one day we'll hear something about it. I don't know. But Lue likes to talk about things being like an onion, and maybe one of those skins will be peeled off. I don't know.
Rocky, I've got one final question for you, and this goes back to your military service. Speaking from personal experience with 12 years service in the Air Force, being deployed 2.5 years in the Middle East, a little over a year down in South America, all over the place. I served with hundreds of people. If need be, I could call up people and have them vouch for where I was, what I did, when I did it, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you have the same thing.
Easy.
Do you not find it odd that nobody that Lue Elizondo has ever served with has stepped up and said, I shared a foxhole with Lue, or I rode a Bradley while Lue and General Mathis were fighting the Taliban? There's been no corroboration from anybody that ever served with Lue.
Yeah, it's odd. That said, I doubt that a lot of people want to, because of the topic, right? Because of UFOs being what it is, it's unlikely that people would want to jump to that person's defense necessarily, just because it's such a roast fest, right? But yeah, it's odd, and that you do see in cases, for example, of stolen valor, where people make all these claims about their service, and there's no one there to back them up. Well, that is a telltale sign. I always find it funny when you see these people online exaggerating their service. How come I'm the only guy that ever just swept a floor, right? Like,
right.
It seems like everybody was special forces or some super secret job. I spent a lot of time picking up cigarette butts in my career.
So, if it moves, salute it. If it doesn't move, paint it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting point. I don't know. And first of all, I don't know. Is that the case? No one's ever come to back up. I don't know if that's the case. But I think that Lue did serve in the DIA. That much is true. He was a counterintelligence officer in the Army. I think that is true. I think that he was highly educated. I think that's true. So, there's a lot of truths there. Not everything is just a pile of horse shit. So
sure. So no, I completely get that. I just find it odd. I'm not saying it's nefarious. I'm not saying it's well, it is a red flag to me, but I'm not saying it's a huge point of contention or concern. But I would just have expected that since 2017, when the New York Times article came out and Lue Elizondo became a household name, that somebody somewhere wearing the same pair of boots that he wore would have stood up and said, I know him.
Yeah. Oh, that'll probably happen. I think that no matter what, it's likely, now that you've said it, it may happen because, we all have friends, and I'm sure he has plenty too. So I don't know. I just think that the topic is toxic, right? Like, look, none of my military friends want any part of this. Before this interview today, everybody was telling me, don't do it, stay away, stop.
Yeah.
It's it'll be the end of you.
And by the way, you've said you're one and done. You're not going to be on every podcast for the next 2 years, right?
I've said to one other person that if I ever do this again, it'll be their show, but I did tell him that I don't know if I can do this again. That's why I want to get this right and just say my piece. I'm sorry to people that were expecting more. This is just my truth.
Yeah, and to be clear, I try to manage expectations.
Yeah,
but, and I get it. Like, we didn't want to hype this too much, but I really do believe that the gist of what I put in the thumbnail and the title is another card falling, because I think, and I want to thank you for your courage to come and tell your version of your experiences with him, because I think it corroborates a lot of what other people have said who have gotten attacked and called liars. Once is a fluke, but 2 or 3 times is a pattern.
Yeah. I really hope that he's not behind that stuff. I got no sense at all that he was when I was speaking with him about people attacking others. I got no sense at all that he was behind that. In fact,
well, he certainly, I've never said that he's behind it.
Yep.
But what I've said is that he's aware of it. People have made him crystal clear aware of it. People have texted him that have his phone number saying you have to condemn this, and he never has. That's my major problem with it. If he would even just issue a half-ass, I don't condone or support anybody being doxxed or threatened or their families intimidated or harassed, that would be enough for me. But the fact that he's never done that makes me believe that maybe he doesn't direct it or create it himself, but he doesn't step in and say, don't do that, and that's a problem for me, especially when people are throwing around like, oh, military veteran, hero words. An honorable man would say, what are you doing? You're attacking people's children and wives by name. Yeah. You're threatening people. Like, don't do that in my name. And to be clear, people have done that in his name. Like,
I really hope that he does speak out against that stuff, because really he probably could control that just by speaking out,
or at least tamp it down a great deal.
Well, we all need some safety here.
But instead, he follows the people that do that. Like on Twitter. Yeah. So it sort of encourages that behavior, and I just want to put it on the record to be clear. Somebody said, Stephen, all of this, these people that did this stuff to you and your family before, they're all going to be back even more pissed off and do it again. I'm at the point where if anybody does anything like that to me or my family, I'm pressing charges. I let it go the last time. I'm pressing charges. I'm getting restraining orders. I'm pressing charges for terroristic threats, and across interstate lines, it's a felony. Best of luck to you. They have to investigate it, and they have to do something about it. I'm not going to just sit back and let it go in the future. And I think nobody should. All it would have taken is 1 or 2 people to get arrested for that kind of behavior, and it would stop instantly. But these keyboard warriors think that they can just keep this stuff up. And I'm real big on saying this, and I mean this. You can say anything you want about me. I don't care. You can say anything you want. But when you involve my wife and children, who, by the way, my wife, she calls this crazy world. She hasn't, she's an accountant. She knows nothing about any of this, doesn't care, to involve her and people going as far as saying like, oh, I'm outside of your house at this address. Your wife looks good tonight in my live chat. Maybe I'll hurt her. Like by name, that's just way too, that's just too much, and at some point you have to say, no, we're not going to just let this go. I'm going to report, I'm just going to start filing charges and reporting people, get restraining orders.
I hope that after tonight that people who, don't believe me or whatever, I hope they can just leave it at, look, this is my feeling and my opinion of these things, and not get too upset, because we all have differences of opinion. And I think that, this behavior that some people have displayed over the years, harassing others, of course, it's in some cases it's criminal, and none of us need that crap. And I'm certainly not going to put up with it. I'm not worried about it. I'm sure that right now on some social media platform, somebody is saying that, I've got a face like a boiled boot or whatever, but I don't care. They can say whatever they like about me or whatever. But yeah, to start harassing our families and our workplaces and all that kind of stuff, that's not cool at all. So I guess before I go, I just want to say that I caution people when they're getting into this. If you don't have hard evidence for something, demand it, because there's this narrative that has been spun since 2017 is garbage. There's something absolutely wrong with it. The tic tac gimbal go fast, it's all falling apart. There is some other pile of horseshit being conducted, and I don't know what it is. Like, I tried to answer your question earlier, Jeremy, about it, but I don't know. But the current packaging of whatever this is crap. And
yeah,
so I will pull the eject handle now from ufology and hopefully never return. So
yeah, well, just so you're aware, you're always welcome. Like, you just don't feel like you're not, because you say that. You could change your mind. Maybe in a few months you say, maybe I'd like to be on a panel show with people that are skeptical of certain stories and do that, or
And Rocky, maybe
welcome.
you spin up your podcast again.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
good timing.
People have already.
Maybe you could get Lue to guest and talk about his new book on your podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any interest in being on camera ever again. And
well, you're barely on camera now.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I know. I'm in the dark, but no, my wife doesn't want me to be part of this either. She didn't really want me to do this.
Well, then you better not, or you're going to have a tough life.
Yeah. So she keeps saying, I'm like, this is the last thing I'll ever do. And she's like, yeah, you said that last time. And I'm like, oh God, I know. So it's really got to be it. I don't want to be on camera ever again. So that's it. And it's not, and I appreciate the opportunity. I thank you both.
Well, I thank you so much for coming here, because I think that this is extremely important to put it on the record. And now we have more corroboration of what a lot of other people have been saying. And, it becomes harder and harder for people to deny these things. The more
there's
people
something
come
wrong.
forward. And by the way, I can't confirm when or it. There's somebody else like Rocky that I've been speaking to that tells an incredibly similar story. So
I know someone else too.
We may get them here as well to further, drop another card from this house of cards, because I agree with you, Rocky. This whole narrative that we were fed is a carefully manipulated illusion. It's not real. You start picking it apart, how it was put together and managed, and the lies by omission in order to make it work, and we'll put these two things together. It starts to fall apart. And this incredible, I just don't understand the hero worship of people who are just filling their pockets with UFO dollars every chance they get. The documents with you is a perfect example. Why hype up ordinary documents with somebody's military credentials to help sell it or drama it up? Why not just release them or talk about them? No, we got to wait for the documentary. It shows that their true intentions aren't. I don't think these people care about disclosure or care about transparency, in my view.
Maybe they don't want disclosure because there's nothing to disclose.
Yeah.
There's no.
Oh, well, it would end the grift. Imagine if it did happen.
Well, I thought about this a lot. And somebody had asked me one time, not too long ago, if I had definitive proof that extraterrestrials had or are visiting Earth, what would I do with it? And I thought about it. And my answer was, and it still is, I would release that evidence to the world immediately.
I agree.
And then I would write a book about it, but I wouldn't release it as a book.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I'm at with it. You know, if the information is important, just let it go. And we do things here like we maintain a Google Drive, and any documents that I share or research, everybody can have it. Everybody can have it. You know, I think this whole disclosure and transparency, they want disclosure and transparency, except when it comes to what they're doing. It doesn't line up.
Rocky, one final question, and I swear I'll shut up. In your conversations with Lue, were you ever introduced to Knapp or Corbell or any of the main talking heads that are out and about today?
Not through Lue. No,
Okay.
not at all. No. In fact, when I spoke to Lue back then, or ever, it was actually me that brought up these people, not him. Yeah. So
what was his take on them? Do you remember?
The feeling I got from, because I don't remember exact comments, was that for example, Greer, those kinds of guys, he just thought they were batshit crazy. So I could agree with that. Corbell and Knapp, and those guys. I mean, I had minor contact. Corbell was on I used to manage a Facebook page on this topic. Yeah, believe it or not, it was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program Discussion Cell. We were fanboys and girls, and I personally booted Corbell off of that page. So that's the last connection I ever had with him.
That's funny.
But I don't. He's an entertainer, So
yeah.
But anyway, I do thank you both for this opportunity to speak about this. And
don't be a stranger, Rocky. I've enjoyed talking to you over the last bunch of months and getting to know you and your take, because there's not many skeptical people that, but I would call Rocky a skeptical believer. Like we discussed, he believes there's probably, just like me, he believes there's probably intelligent life, but he wants to see evidence of it before people jump straight to aliens are visiting Earth.
Well, I'm hoping there's intelligent life somewhere, because I haven't.
It's not here.
It's not here. Yeah,
it's not.
It's not here. Right. It's so somewhere. But yeah, no, I think that it's out there, and I hope that James Webb or Kepler proves that.
And UFOs are real, right?
People fail to identify objects all the time. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah. But, look, lastly, I do have friends, close friends that really believe that they've had very hard to believe encounters with things. And these are very honest people. And so something convinced them of that. They're not crazy. So I don't have answers for everyone's sightings or everybody's experiences or beliefs. I don't claim that to know. I know that those people, some of my closest friends, really do feel that they've had incredible experiences, and they want to know why. They want to know why they believe that. And
I believe that stuff is out there. I just don't believe in this bullshit narrative that we're being spoon-fed.
Yeah.
And Rocky, I'm deeply appreciative of you.
Me too.
Being able to come forward and say everything that you've said. And I want to let people know this is me talking. This is not Rocky talking. He was very reserved, very cautious in his words. And I'm pretty damn certain that if Rocky was an American instead of a Canadian, this conversation would have taken a completely different path.
It's the Canadian nice guy thing. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, like I say, I was never treated badly. I just felt that if Mr. Elizondo wanted me to be involved with something, that something was wrong and with that narrative, and it needed to be cleared up. That's it. That's all.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's time to throw you out of here. And I appreciate everything that you've done tonight. I think it's really important that you came forward and told your experiences and your story. And we appreciate you doing so.
Thanks, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. And one last thing, one more time to Lue Jimenez. I saw him make some quick comment, and I really did feel for you, Mr. Jimenez. And I hope I'm saying your name right, but I did.
Rocky, I just got a text from Lou this very second, and he says, "Please tell him thank you from me."
Yeah, he thanked you in the live chat as well. So
I would love to just have a private conversation with him.
I'll get in touch with him. Sure, I'll get in touch with him right after the show, right after the broadcast.
It'd be my absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. All right. Well, thank you for all you've done, Rocky. You have a great evening. I'm going to throw you out of here. All right. And Jeremy, just to wrap up, that's a lot to digest. But what are you thinking now that somebody's sort of, I don't want to draw conclusions, but to me, this is so similar to your own experience that I know you have to be feeling a certain kind of way because you were attacked, called a liar. There's people on Twitter right now, character assassinating. How dare you have Jeremy on your show? The fanboys. Does this sort of vindicate you? Do you feel like a little vindicated?
It absolutely helps. It certainly does. I appreciate Rocky's approach. I appreciate his measured approach. I appreciate the fact that he does not want to libel or slander or degrade or insult anybody, even the people that he has questionable issues with, right? But if you look between the lines, if you look what he said, what the intent was behind what he was saying, the recruitment tactics that Lou used on Rocky, saying that, hey, you're going to be a hero, you're going to go far, you're going to be a really important person in this whole part of disclosure. That's what happens. That is 100% what happens. And to hear it from someone else that directly went through it with a degree of separation from me at the time, we hadn't influenced each other at all. Rocky didn't know me. I didn't know him until he was embedded in that. And that's
and just so you're aware, I've been talking to him for many months now. And when he first started telling me his story in confidence, he was like, "This is off the record," and I said, "Okay, I'm always a man of my word when it comes to that." As soon as I started hearing his story, do you know the first thing I said to him is, "I have to put you in touch with Jeremy McGowan, who's had a very similar experience to you." Now, I don't recall. He may have said, "I've already spoken to him." I don't really recall the sequence of events completely. Either he had already I think he'd already contacted you. So that was my first. When hearing his story, I said, "I've got terrible deja vu of Jeremy McGowan's blog. This sounds like a repeat of Jeremy McGowan's blog." And, wanted him to get in touch with you, if for nothing else, for moral support. And I appreciate that you were willing to come on tonight and sort of help him, navigate this, because, it's not an easy situation.
Patterns tell stories. And the story that we are being told now is that it's a load of crap. We don't know what the end goal is. We don't know why it's being framed the way it is. We don't know why the approach is occurring the way it is. But it's not right. Yeah,
no, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, but I think tonight we got a little closer to the truth. I still am of the opinion that this is all about making money, because there's a reason that people sit on things for 2 years until a documentary deal comes around before they release them while calling themselves disclosure advocates.
I think that has a large part to play in it, but I think it actually goes deeper. I think money is at the crux of the pyramid. And then as you build that base of the pyramid out, I honestly think that there is a group of individuals that have unwavering beliefs in the UFO aspect with leanings towards the occult, beliefs that have been around for centuries that they are rekindling.
Yeah, since Madame Blavatsky,
Yeah, and they're bringing it back in the digital age.
Yeah, I think that you might be right. Well, I thank you for coming on. This has been one of my favorite shows so far. I love that we can, this is when I feel like this. I always say we want the show to be a public benefit, and tonight I think it was. And thank you for your help making
I
that happen.
appreciate the invite. And Rocky, if you're still watching, thank you for coming out. And I know that you're pulling out of ufology, but stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. McGowan. We appreciate you. And thanks
Thank
for
you.
all you've done. All right, friends. Well, I'm just gonna check in very quickly with the PayPal pledges for those on where we read every single one. But when we're doing a very, I thought this was an incredibly important interview. We got through the super chats. We read every single one of those as well. Just take a moment. We want to thank Maria for a kind and generous $25 PayPal, who says, I can't wait to hear what this person is going to reveal. Well, I hope that that worked for you. And I thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. We want to thank all you kind and generous super chatters, and for all of you new viewers. Now, I realize that some of the new viewers may consider my show something they're not interested in. But if you're interested in the truth, I would really appreciate your support. So smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, share these videos on your social media. It really does help. I'll take just a few comments from the crowd before we wrap things up here. Great show. Got to get going. Have to check out Coulthard's Giant UFO. The engine has to be turned over for 10 minutes at least once a week. Good. Have a good evening all. Yeah. Yeah, Mike A says, great channel, new viewer here. Well, please smash that subscribe button. We need I think we need like 140 more to hit a big number for us that we've been trying to get to for some time. Simon Fly is here and says, great conversation. Well, thank you. And we thank all of you, especially you new viewers. Please do give us a chance. Hit that subscribe button, smash the notification bell. You'll know about all of the latest live shows, and we will be live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. We're going to be taking a deep dive into following the money of UFOs. I've been preparing. I've got slides and everything, so please do join us tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's all we got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Canby, and good night, and God bless all of you.